Oh my goodness, I'm so excited for today's video because we were talking about traveling the world and working remotely. And today I have for you my 10 best tips and tricks that I am implementing like right now, like literally in this exact moment, coming to you semi-live from Phoenix, Arizona. We have so much opportunity today. I literally get giddy about it because of a computer or a cell phone or a tablet and internet connection, we are able to have a business from anywhere in the world. And I am a raging fan of mixing business with pleasure. And today it comes with some really big lifestyle benefits. We've all heard of like the digital nomad or laptop lifestyle. And even if you have a family like I do, I have 3 kids, it is more accessible than we think. And having done this the last few years, so 2019, I traveled probably like 13 to 14 times, mostly by myself, a couple times with my family. In 2020, we spent 8 weeks on the road. In 2021, we spent 8 weeks on the road. And presently, we are on the road for 3 weeks. I do like to distinguish between a trip and a vacation. On a vacation, I do not work. On a trip, I still work, but my hours are really minimal. And I spend a lot of time still with my family. And so when you are self-employed, you have a business, it can really pay off in really big ways. And I'm going to walk through my top 10 tips that I've kind of learned and perfected and implemented over the last 3 to 4 years about how to do this really successfully. And make sure you subscribe right now to our channel, Free Mama TV, so you can come back next week, because next week I'm going to dive more into the nitty gritty of how to be a digital nomad with kids. So like, how do you actually work with kids? Today, we're going to focus more on some of the tricks that make traveling and working even sweeter. Okay, the first one is less of a like how to win at life and more like how to not lose. So this is just a best practice, and it has to do with time zone awareness. Now, typically people who are time zone aware are also people who can like just be dropped in a forest and they're like,
that way is north.
I'm pretty good at it. My husband is time zone deficient. Like he has no idea. What's really cool though, is that if you use Google Chrome, which is one of the things I recommend inside of the Free Mama movement, because when you get access to Google Workspace, you can, you get the email, you get the calendar, you get all these different things, but it's a really great platform for time blocking. What's really cool is that in Google, you can actually go and change your time zone to wherever you are in the world. And this will let you know, like for where you are, what time your calls are, what time your time blocks are. And it's really important not to mess this up, because whether you have recurring meetings with team or clients or, you know, doing lives or marketing things, like when you're traveling and as you're traveling, things change. And if you're on the road for like 8 weeks at a time, like I've been with my family, and you go to weird places like Phoenix, Arizona, that don't even do time zone or daylight savings change, like you might have literally no idea what time it is. Your body is working hard enough to try to figure out what's going on. You don't need it to impact your work or your ability to connect with clients as well. So my first tip is to make sure that wherever you are, you go into your Google Calendar, you sync it to your local time zone so that you know when and where you're supposed to be doing things. Oftentimes it'll even prompt you and ask if you want to update once you hook up to a local Wi-Fi. It seems like a small thing, but it is very important. And I've actually seen someone who shall remain nameless miss appointments because they didn't think about the time zone shift. Okay, my second tip is like one of my favorites. And this is exactly what I'm talking about when I am talking about mixing business with pleasure. I'm the queen of doing this as someone who is both self-employed, but also massively interested in investing in myself and my business. Part of the reason we're here in Phoenix right now is actually because my husband's sister's family lives here. So we've been spending lots of time getting all the cousins together, and it's really exciting. But I'm also here for a business mastermind. It's called Unlock the Secrets. I'm on my way there right now. And so what's really cool is because more of 50% of the time of the purpose that we're here is business related for this mastermind. My company is paying for the Airbnb that we're staying in. And what that means is that this is actually a business expense, which plays a role when it comes time to pay taxes as someone who is self-employed. So self-employment is going to give you a whole lot more time freedom because you're going to determine when and how you work and how much you get paid, but it's also going to offer you tax benefits that you're not going to have as an employee. I'm not going to go into how to start your own business today. That's what most of this channel is dedicated to. So you can check out some of our videos about how to get started in freelancing if you're currently working remotely or maybe looking for remote work and you're interested in like, whoa, how do I actually make this a benefit for me? Because it does depend on the work that you actually do. Now, as a general rule, as long as 50% or more of the business that you're doing is a business expense, the way that's defined, by the way, is that you're spending the money to make more money in your business, right? So whether that's meals, hotels, going out to eat with friends from my mastermind, if we're discussing how to make revenue in my business, it's a business expense. And that's literally the whole point of a mastermind. In fact, inside of the Free Mama community, we actually do these intensives with our students inside of the Freedom Founder Society. We've got 2 huge trips planned at the moment. And it's so exciting because we get to actually live our life. We get to enjoy what we're doing and go experience new places, new cultures, travel, get some sun, have fun. But it's also a business expense because the intention is to actually go learn how to make more money. So it is like the ultimate mixing business with pleasure perk that if you're not doing this as you're traveling the world, you're missing out on a massive opportunity. Of course, I always recommend work with a professional. So consult an accountant, a bookkeeper to know how to actually categorize your different expenses while you're traveling. But just know that if this is a huge benefit of being self-employed. And so I definitely recommend looking into how to maximize that, because again, not only do you get to travel and live your life, your best life, but you actually get to write it off and learn how to grow your business as well. Best perk of all. If you are looking for an intensive where you can grow as a business owner, make more money in your business, be able to travel the world and write it off and learn more about all of these things we're talking about today, while building a beautiful laptop lifestyle for yourself, you can check out more information about how to go from self-employed to business owner. We have a 3-part free video series for you. You'll also learn more about our Freedom Founder Society program. You can find that information down in the link below. Okay, this next tip took me a little while to come to, if I'm being honest, because back in the day when my husband and I were living paycheck to paycheck, like credit cards were scary for us. Like the only time we actually used credit card is like because we did not have the money, which also meant we didn't really have a plan for paying off the credit card. Since becoming self-employed, in fact, within the first 6 months of launching the Free Mama movement, we became credit card debt free, which is super exciting. And so I will say this with the pro tip disclaimer that you have to know how to use credit cards responsibly, which at one point in my life, I did not, which means you should not put more on a credit card than you actually know how to pay off. And you're actually able to pay off. So if we can all just kind of agree that's the general foundation, once you learn how to do that and use credit cards responsibly, you should absolutely have a credit card. And I know there's people out there like Dave Ramsey and whatever, and they don't like credit cards. But the problem is if you know how to use it responsibly, you're actually missing out on extremely lucrative rewards by not playing the credit card game. So just like we use the tax code to our advantage as using business expenses when we travel as someone who's self-employed, you can do the exact same thing with credit card companies. So you can use points to actually book your travel. I've gone on entire trips. In fact, because I have Marriott rewards and we host a lot of our events through Marriott, every hotel we're staying at we're doing Airbnb and hotel, and every hotel we're staying at, with the exception of one night, I think, was completely free because of points. For Christmas, for like the last 3 years, I'm able to hook up my American Express credit card to Amazon, and I have not paid for Christmas presents for anyone in my family for the last 3 years. I've used credit card points. So you can book hotels, you can book airfare travel. What's really cool is that if you have credit cards that have like a travel reward, so like our personal credit card is actually a Southwest credit card. And so we're able to earn airline points and book flights completely free. So again, I understand it's a complicated relationship with credit cards, but if you can be responsible, you can actually use these points to fund your vacations, which is really exciting. One more thing I recommend though, and this was actually advice given to me by our previous CPA, is don't use your points for your business travel. The reason is that your business travel is a business expense. So go ahead and pay for those things, rake in the points and use those for like your personal vacations, or again, Christmas presents or whatever else makes sense for you. But it's really, really awesome when you can gain those rewards. Some credit cards have cash back. Again, sometimes you can get upgrades. Sometimes you can get lounge access when you're traveling. But shop around for the credit card that's right for you. I have an American Express and a Southwest Visa, and that's it. And it works really amazing for my family. I'm sure there's other recommendations. In fact, if you have a credit card you absolutely love and you know how to play the points game, let us know down in the comments below so we can all see if that's going to be a good fit for us. Tip number 4 is short and sweet. And I mean what I say. Always pack food, says a mom, and bring an empty water bottle whenever you're going to the airport. And that way it's empty when you go through security, and then you can fill it up before you get on the plane. I have been on plenty of flights that ended up having turbulence, and they are not able to do any sort of like concierge service of like snacks and soda and whatever. And it's a really big bummer to be traveling and be dehydrated, which makes you dehydrated anyway. So that's my airport tip, is like, make sure you always have food, make sure you always have an empty water bottle, make sure you fill it before you get on the plane. Can't be more prepared than that as mom. Tip number 5 also requires a little bit of, you got to be there mentally the same way you do, you have to have the responsibility for credit card points. And what I want to call this is make rich decisions. And what I mean is you have to learn how to pay for convenience, like fastest travel time, nonstop flights, getting the early bird check-in, or, you know, making those, like, what would rich people do? What would a wealthy person choose in this? And the reason that this is really important when it comes to travel is, number one, a lot of things can go wrong. It's just part of it. We'll talk about that here a little bit later. But also it can be really stressful, especially when you're traveling around with family. So one of my former mentors, Myron Golden, who's actually here in Phoenix with me right now, I saw him last night, so shout out to Myron. He says this, and it is so true. He says, poor people will spend a lot of time to save a little bit of money, while rich people will spend a little bit of money to save a lot of time. This could not be more true when it comes to travel. Quit trying to, like, you know, find the cheapest thing, but then you end up traveling for 17 hours when really it could be 10 hours, like pay for convenience. I'm telling you, you will not regret it when it comes time to travel. And again, if you're using the credit cards and getting the rewards and the points and the whatever, you're actually driving your costs down. Or if you're mixing business with pleasure and you're traveling for business, again, it's a write-off anyway. So make rich decisions. You're going to be so much happier when it actually comes time to take your trip. Tip number 6, be prepared to work when you can. Like I just mentioned, sometimes travel plans go a little bit crazy. In fact, so we drove here. It took 4 hours the first day, 8 hours the second day, 6 hours the next day. We were originally driving 8 hours the first day. Literally, we decided to leave like within 2 hours of when we actually left our house. And this was a trip where we were driving. So I have a hotspot on my phone. Like, I had a lot more capability. But whether you're traveling by airplane or whatever or train, or in our RV, we've been in situations where we had no access to Wi-Fi. Like, you have to be prepared to work when you can, because you don't know what's going to happen in the future. So number 1, make sure all of your things are charged before you even leave your house. Consider investing in a portable charger as well. And make sure you have different types of adapters. Like, make sure you bring all of your cords to plug things in. A lot of Airbnbs and even airports these days, like, have the connector where you don't even need like the full like prong, but just make sure you're prepared to actually have your devices functioning, because if you are working remotely, you probably are relying on technology, and you want to make sure that it is actually like charged and ready to work and function when you need it. With that being said, there's a lot of places where Wi-Fi sucks. So I never invest in Wi-Fi on planes. It's usually like, I don't know, $15, and it's awful. Like, typically I can't even do the basic functions of what I need to do in my business. And I spent $15. And even though it's a business expense, it's just not worth it. And I usually end up really frustrated on an airplane. So I just don't even plan to get the Wi-Fi anymore. And instead I use Google Chrome. Like I mentioned earlier, I use my Google Calendar. I have Google Workspace for my email. I also use the Google Chrome browser. And what's really cool about that is if I'm doing anything in like Google Spreadsheets or Google Docs or anything like that, you can actually use offline mode. So I always make sure I set it up at the airport or at home before I even get on the airplane to make sure it's like loaded and live on my page. But if you're logged into your Google Chrome account, you can actually turn it on offline mode. I can do all my work. And then when I get to my destination or I next get access to Wi-Fi, I can actually sync it with the online version of the document. What's really cool about this is like, I'm always prepared to get certain things done, regardless of my internet connection at all, so that I can take advantage of those little times when it's convenient for me to work, even while I'm traveling. So that's like a huge tip that I learned the hard way while being very frustrated trying to pay for Wi-Fi on a plane, and I wasn't able to get anything done. It was very frustrating. Something else you may consider, depending on the way that you're traveling, where you're going and for how long, is maybe buying a mobile hotspot. So again, some of us have hotspot access on our cell phone, depending on your cell phone carrier and your plan, but they actually, a lot of them sell like these little devices. We got that in our RV that was like a different phone carrier than our cell phone carrier, just depending on who had better access. It worked, I would say, maybe 50% of the time. The phone worked maybe 40% of the time. 10% of that time, I needed to make sure I had the offline mode access to make sure I could actually run my business. Okay, tip number 7 is a pretty quick one too. Make sure you pack effortlessly. And what I mean by this is, again, I traveled a lot in 2019 and I felt like I was always like loading and unloading my suitcase. And I learned that if I bought a second set of travel skincare products and like cheap makeup, because I don't wear a lot of makeup anyway, and I could just keep them in my travel things always ready to go, it saves me so much time both packing and unpacking when I get home. So make this small investment to have a second set of all of your items just already ready to go in your travel stuff, even just leave it in your suitcase. It is so like it's life-changing. It seems small, but it's a really significant thing to do. Also, make sure you have a bag with wheels, make sure you carry on whenever possible. And again, if you are acting like a wealthy person, you are getting that early boarding pass or a seat in the front of the plane to ensure that you're going to have a spot with the overhead space. So make sure you carry on when possible. Plus, so many airlines charge for it these days. You don't want to have to worry about that. So again, convenience. There was this one time where I was in the Denver, or no, where was I? I was in the Dallas airport. I was on the runway and the whole airport got shut down due to weather. And everybody who had a checked bag had to stand in a line. And none of those people ended up getting a hotel for the night because they were waiting to get their stuff. Because I had a carry-on bag and everything with me, I was able to just go to a hotel, sleep overnight, and wait until they opened the airport the next day. Literally sanity saving. Tip number 8 is to prepare for the unexpected. I've kind of alluded to this the entire time. Again, it's just one of those mentalities you have to have when you're traveling. A couple months ago, my husband and I went to Mexico for a mastermind. So again, who doesn't want to go to Mexico and have their business pay for it? I don't know. We had an amazing time. We were flying through St. Louis on our way home, and there was tons of turbulence landing in St. Louis, and there was a huge storm pushing through the Midwest of the United States. And my husband's already not a very good flyer. He gets very anxious. So we touched down, and I just knew there was no way I was getting him on another plane for our connecting flight. And so just immediately we were thinking like, okay, well, we're about 4 hours from home, so we're just going to go rent a car and drive. Now, we couldn't have anticipated what happened next, but about 30 minutes onto the road driving home through this storm, our second flight actually got canceled. So we were like ahead of, those 150 people, whatever, going to get a rental car or wherever people ended up going once the flight was canceled. I also recently visited some friends in Utah. And again, one of my friends' flights was canceled, and she really freaked out because she was by herself. She was traveling alone, and she hadn't thought about like, what's my plan B, or what would an emergency plan be? Well, she was also within driving distance, but because she was so stressed out, she couldn't think of that idea on her own. So we were like messaging, and I told her like, have you talked to anybody else on the flight? Does anybody else, maybe you want to share a car or, drive with you so you're not alone and things like that. And she ended up doing that, and it was a really great solution. So again, prepare for the unexpected. You're already going to have your snacks and your water because we already covered that, but just know like it's going to be okay when stuff goes wrong. Even if you have to sleep in an airport overnight or whatever, it's stressful, it's annoying. But if you can keep that positive attitude and just think of all of your options, what's a plan B? What would an emergency plan be? If you're not traveling with your kids and someone's watching them, like who else could step in if they're not able to go longer because your plans delay? Like just kind of play out these scenarios in your head so that if and when something happens, you don't just shut down emotionally and freak out. Like, that you have another plan that you can count on. Okay, tip number 9, we're definitely going to cover more in next week's video as well. Communicate your communication preferences with your clients and your team members or your students or, your boss or whoever in advance whenever you are work traveling. Okay, so not a vacation, but like you're on a trip. So make sure that people know like the best time to get a hold of you, the time zone you're in, the the easiest way to reach with you and communicate with you while you're traveling. Like for me, my team and I, we use Voxer like really regularly. It's this walkie-talkie app. But when I'm traveling with my kids, like it is so much easier for me to be responsive if they send it as a text message rather than something I have to listen to, because I'm almost always surrounded by other people. So I communicate this to make sure that I'm not the bottleneck inside my business. Like I'm always being as responsive as possible. Another thing is like, I'm not at my computer for a set number of hours a day while I travel, like ever. I also don't have Voxer notifications turned on. So I make sure that essential people have my cell phone number in case something is time sensitive. That way they can always reach me. Again, I'm not a bottleneck. I'm not preventing work from moving forward. And I'm making sure everybody's still getting those touch points and being served, but I'm also living my best life on my vacation or my trip. Last one, number 10, just keep a positive outlook and be so grateful for what you have and what you've created for yourself. There's so many people out there that if you ask them, like, what would you do if you made more money? Or what would you do if money wasn't an issue? And almost everybody says travel. Almost everybody says travel the world, but very few people actually have the courage to pursue it and just start doing it, whether you feel ready or not. And hopefully following some of these tips and tricks that I have accumulated over the years will make it even easier and more joyful for you. Enjoy this beautiful planet that we've been given. Be so grateful for it. I'm sitting here sweating my butt off. It's like 110 degrees outside right now, but I wouldn't want to be anywhere else other than sharing this information with you guys. But I got to go. I'm so sorry. I'm here for an event. My business is paying for it. So I'm off to the mastermind, but you implement these things. Let me know down in the comments below which one of these was most helpful or insightful for you. And I will see you here next week where we're going to talk about what it looks like to actually work on the road with kiddos. See you next time. Oh my gosh, this lighting is so bad. Ooh, okay, that looks better. Then I have a dirty room behind me and I have to hold my computer. How do we figure this out? Okay, that's gonna be too high. What if I stand on the bed? That's a little awkward. Well, then I got that bad light too. Maybe we go outside. It's like 100 degrees. It's not always easy, but it's possible.